If you're a founder or entrepreneur wearing a Whoop band, the single biggest mistake you're making right now is treating that recovery score like it's the be-all and end-all. Now, whilst it's useful, it's just the headline. What's really valuable is what sits underneath it. And that's because your body shows signs of stress before you consciously feel burnt out. And that looks like your resting heart rate creeping up, your HRV being suppressed, your sleep being inconsistent, and your respiratory rate changing over time. So if you're just looking at whether that recovery score is in the green, yellow, and red, you're missing the bigger pattern at play here. And in this video, we're going to be looking at the 6 metrics that I look at with the founders I work with, the ones that actually matter, and how to use them together to decide whether to push, maintain, or back off. And for those of you that don't know me, my name is Sri-Ramesh. I'm a health and performance coach at Legacy Health, and I help men optimize and elevate their health using diagnostics, biometrics, and lifestyle interventions. Now, the first thing I want to clarify is that when we typically work with people, with individuals, when they first start using the Whoop, they treat it like a scorecard. And I want to completely bust that myth and understanding of it. Because when we see these scores, when we see these colors, it becomes a judgment tool that they see every day, where green meaning good, yellow meaning okay, red meaning bad. And that's a very simplistic way of looking at it. It's quite binary as well. Now, the real value is understanding what the metrics that sit underneath these scores mean and how they influence them. If you're someone that shoulders a lot of responsibility, you're running a business, you're leading teams, you need to use Whoop as a decision-making system for your physiology and for how you run your day. It should help you prompt questions like, should I train hard today? Should I do a lower intensity session? Do I need to change my sleep, my wind down habits for my sleep schedule? Do I need to make any interventions in the way I eat and my diet? Things around thinking around caffeine and alcohol as well. So it really should be a provocation to help you understand what kind of things are happening in my day, what inputs am I putting in that's affecting my recovery. So this is how I'd look at my Whoop metrics. I wouldn't be looking at one number in isolation. When I work with a client, I'd be asking these 4 questions. I'd be trying to understand their baseline, the trend, their cluster, and then what decision to make after. Baseline starts off with what's normal for you. What does good look like for you? What's normal for you? So for example, your heart rate variability, that's one metric that's very individual. It's a very personal metric. It's very different for every individual we work with. There's no such thing as a set HRV. So it's understanding what does that look like over time for you? What is your resting heart rate over time? Establishing that first by looking at it over the course of a month. And just to highlight here, if you've only just received your Whoop, you need to give it at least 14, 15 days to get some level of insight. Ideally, a month is even better because now it fully understands your habits, it understands your physiology better. So give it some time to calibrate. So within a month, you'd be able to understand what your baseline is. Are your numbers changing over time? Are they moving upwards in trajectory? Are they declining? Are they frantic and they're changing every other day? So it's understanding that and being very cognizant of it. In cluster, are multiple metrics telling the same story? So just because your resting heart rate might jump up a little one night, it's worth understanding, is it just your resting heart rate jumping? Is your sleep also declining in consistency? Is your respiratory rate also going up? If all these metrics are moving in different directions together, then it's worth investigating further what's actually happening underneath the surface. And then final decision. Based on all these things that are happening, all these metrics moving in different directions, what do I change today? How do I interact my day differently? Do I push harder? Do I relax a bit and spend more time in recovery? And that's a very simple framework for how you should be thinking about your Whoop metrics. So these are the 6 metrics to pay attention to. We're going to go through them one by one, what it tells you, what to pay attention to, what it can suggest, and what decision you should make with it. Here are the 6 key metrics I would pay attention to. Starting with number 1, your resting heart rate. It is by far the single biggest predictor of whether you get a good, consistent night's sleep. It tells you how hard your body's working at rest. Typical range is around 60 to 100. That's considered normal. When we work with clients, we aim to get them into the sub 60s, because normal doesn't mean good, it doesn't mean optimal. And that's something we work on consistently to achieve a better baseline. And I'll show you what that looks like on the app. So this is my resting heart rate. And right now it shows my average at 56. If we can look at this graph here, we can see this horizontal gray bar that kind of runs through here. And that's kind of like that's pretty much your range, or your typical range. And this is over the month. Now, typically, if we see our resting heart rate within this kind of, or within your own range, then that's good. There's nothing really to worry about. The concern is when this jumps 3 to 4 beats over the course of a week, and then it becomes something you want to pay a bit more attention to. But otherwise, if it's within your range, then it's okay. The idea is you'd want to bring this down lower over time. And things that you can do to help acutely bring this down over the night is ensuring that you have your last meal 3 to 4 hours before going to bed, ensuring that you're hydrated, that you've calmed yourself down before going to bed. If you're very excited or very amped up before going to bed, you can expect your resting heart rate to also go up in conjunction with that, and that can affect your sleep also. So that's the first thing I'll be paying attention to. If you want to build that to build a better resting heart rate, a much lower one, and have a better baseline, then that involves increasing your aerobic activity across the week. What that means is a bit more zone 2 cardio, which is cardio that isn't as intensive, but brisk pace walks, incline treadmill walks for about 30 to 40 minutes, 2 to 3 times a week initially. Increasing your movement and overall output will allow you to decrease that resting heart rate. Also losing fat and increasing general fitness as well. So HRV is a good measure of how well your nervous system is operating, how well you can go between flight and fight, how quickly you can switch from rest to digest. What we want to see with HRV is that we want to see it going up, not going down. It's a very personal baseline, and it takes time to improve. But largely, when we look at HRV and what we might want to pick up from it, is if your HRV is consistently going down over the course of a week, then it might be cause for concern. It's worth observing. It's worth understanding that maybe you're not recovered as well. And ensuring that you have better recovery, that you're hydrating well, that you're sleeping well, you can have better HRV over time. But again, it's something that I would pay attention to only if it's down significantly over the course of more than a week. A set baseline for what HRV should look like. So my heart rate variability, as you can see, there's a bit of a range here. It goes all the way from the 70s to the 90s. And typically in the days where I've not been very well rested or felt ill or sick, then my HRV goes down. So it's a good indicator of potential sickness also, or burnout rather. Look at number 3, respiratory rate. It's how many breaths you take per minute, and it's usually measured during sleep. Interesting one. Back during COVID, you could tell if someone was going to get COVID or go through sickness 48 to 72 hours prior, if you were to look at their respiratory rate on their wearable. And if you could see a steady increase over a few days, you knew that person could potentially get sick. And that's something I'd pay attention to pay attention now as well. It can actually suggest possible illness, that your body's going through systemic stress, poor recovery. It's a metric that's fairly stable for each person, but it is worth paying attention to if it's increasing. Again, this is one that's a conjunction of several things. If I go into mine, it's a decent sleep score. Okay, so its sleep is largely made up by these different stages of sleep or phases of sleep. Deep sleep, meaning when your body's getting deep recovery and deep physical repair. REM sleep, rapid eye movement sleep, that's your brain going through like mental repair, cognitive repair. Ideally, you want an even balance of both, around 2 hours each, ensuring that the time spent in bed is mostly sleep and not you tossing and turning. And that's what determines the sleep score. So if it's dropping day in, day out, it's something to pay attention to. And the last two, this is your strain. So it's how much you've been pushing. It's how much you've been exercising, working out, or how much output you have during the day. So it's the load you accumulated from various activities and training. Doesn't necessarily mean good just because it's very high, because if you're under recovered and you've got a high strain, that can lead to burnout also. And then finally, the culmination of all these gets summarized as your recovery. Now, your recovery is when you get that green, yellow, or red. And so summary of readiness. So use that as your opening signal. So these 5 pretty much feed into that recovery score. So for example, how do you look at these in conjunction with each other? How do we read them together? When your sleep is solid, if you've got consistently good sleep, if your HRV is around your baseline or higher, your resting heart rate is good, and it's a good day to push a bit more harder. You have the capacity to. Your body and your nervous system has the capacity to push harder, train harder, and really exert yourself. Because you maintain your recovery, you've primed yourself to be able to push yourself harder. For example, what that could look like for you. So your sleep might be slightly short, might be a bit cut, your HRV might be a bit down, but that doesn't necessarily mean don't do anything either. We use this wearable as a support. I believe intuition is king, but use the wearable as a supplement. If you feel you can, then go for it, but be wary that these signals are telling you that you might not be able to go as hard, or you'll find it harder to recover after. So it's worth being conscious of. But again, these two, there's a bit of overlap here. There's none of this, it's not cut and dry, it's not binary. But when it comes to example 3, when it comes to a red score, typically this involves your resting heart rate being elevated. Is it significantly rate elevated? So is it 7 to 10 beats up over baseline, over your average? And has that happened over more than a week? Is your HRV plummeting day on, day out? Is your respiratory rate also going up? These things matter because in conjunction, it could just mean that you're potentially heading towards illness or that you're burnt out, and pushing any further could impact in a negative way across your physiology. So that is a good way of understanding whether to push, whether to maintain, or whether to restrain and focus on recovery. So it's essentially using these metrics as a decision-making tool for yourself. The key here is, just to play that back, understanding your baseline, understanding the trend over time, what cluster of signals are you seeing, and what decisions should you make based on that? And not looking at any of these in isolation, because just because you have a good number in one area doesn't mean much. It doesn't tell the entire story. But if you understand how they work in conjunction with each other and what they all mean, then you've got something to work with. Then you've got a way to make decisions. If you log in online on your laptop, you can see what these metrics will look like there. Again, it's looking at the month. It's looking at how these trends look over time. Then can you, and only then can you get a better understanding of where you're at, what your baseline is, and what should be a cause for concern if you go way off that baseline. All in all, I think people overcomplicate this way more than they need to. You're just using these specific data points to make better decisions for yourself. And I guess sometimes it can look quite overwhelming when you look at all these numbers and graphs and various lines. But like I said, focus on these 6. Look at your resting heart rate, your HRV, your respiratory rate, your sleep, and how that plays in conjunction with strain. And then you'll have a better understanding of your physiology, of your recovery, what your baseline is, and how to take it from there. If you enjoyed this video and you have a Whoop, you have an Aura Ring rather, and you have questions on how to better read them or how to better use them for your health, feel free to drop me a question in the comments. Otherwise, I'll see you in the next video.